Good evening. I don't know if you probably do realize, but what jewels you have with Jamie and with Emily. I have been treated like an absolute queen from the moment my plane landed in Alpena and I walked through the 4x4 airport. And I was like, are we in someone's house? I was confused. It was so sweet. It was really sweet. I was greeted with a beautiful smile from Jamie, and she gave me a gift, and it was really awesome to have that greeting me. I wanted to say thank you to WBKB for taking the time to being here tonight and broadcasting this, letting people know what Options Pregnancy Center is doing and what you all are doing. And definitely thank you for being here. It's a Thursday night. You probably have kids and things that need to be done, but you're taking time out of your schedule to be here to support Options, and I'm very grateful. I'm hoping, this is a beautiful venue. The food wasn't the food amazing? It was so good. But I'm hoping that one day I'll hear that Options Pregnancy Center is going to be at the big house, and that's where they're going to have their fundraising banquet. And we'll have millions of dollars coming in so that girls and men and women can come in and feel loved. So tonight, I want to share my story with you. And I want to be very careful in this is not about me at all. But I want to share this with you because even though and by the way, I'm not from Tennessee, and I don't know the Tennessee-Michigan thing going on here. I'm from California, but I moved to Tennessee. So someone said tonight about the Southern hospitality, and they are very nice in Tennessee, and someone said something about biscuits and gravy, which I don't like my bread wet, so I don't eat that. But I have learned to be nice. That's very important. But so originally, like I said, I'm from just south of Los Angeles, Orange County, California. I grew up in a wonderful home. My mom and dad were great people, live a very sheltered life. I have one sister. My mom worked for the airlines. My dad was a tool and die maker, but he was a pilot as well. And my mom worked for the airlines, and so because of that, we flew all over the world. So at 6 and 7, we were going to Italy and Spain, all different parts of England, and all over Mexico, Latin America, South America, Central America. And so I was very exposed to a lot of things. I went to a Christian school. My parents took me to church on Sundays and on Wednesdays. I was very sheltered. We didn't hear or see anything that was contra the Bible. I mean, I was very sheltered. I lived in a bubble. When I turned 12 years old, my mom lost her job because the company that she worked for went bankrupt. And so they could no longer afford to put my sister and I in a private school, paying $1,000 a month. So they took me and my sister and put us in public school in California. Well, the area that we lived in was predominantly Mexican American, but the 98% of Mexican Americans that went to my school, out of the 98%, probably 90% of those were gang members. And I had no idea what gang members were. I remember coming to school and I was 12 years old, very innocent. No one knew who I was. And these girls at 12 years old were talking about having sex with different people and smoking dope and all this. And I didn't understand I didn't even understand what they were saying. And so I remember like a couple times I would be standing in the school cafeteria line and some of these girls would come and yank the money out of my hand. I'd be walking home, they'd push me, they'd beat me up. And I never understood why they were so angry. Why were they so mean? Why were they picking on me? My dad is from Mexico. My mom is from Virginia. In 1964, my dad came from Mexico on a bus. My mom went to Tennessee just driving, and they met at Lee College in Cleveland, Tennessee. My dad went up to my mom and he didn't speak any English other than he could say, "I want to hold your hand," because that was a famous Beatles song. And so my mom fell in love with him and they got married. They moved to Mexico for 2 years and they were missionaries there and then moved to California. I knew my dad was Mexican. My name was Hispanic. I knew he spoke Spanish. But my sister looked Mexican. She had black hair and dark skin, and I was the white girl with green eyes and light skin. And so I was targeted, I was bullied, and I could not fit in with these people, and I wanted to just go to school and not be afraid. And so after a year of doing that, and I knew not to tell anybody, because these kids, they had parents. These kids were 12 and 13. Their parents were 24, and their grandparents were 36, and great-grandparents were 48. So it's this cycle of having children at 12 and 13 years old, and all these people were gang members. Like, their grandparents were gang members. And I know it's hard for you to understand, but I mean, these guys did time in the penitentiary for murder. So your grandfather, you know, you think of this nice little white-haired old man walking you to school, and these guys were tatted down from the neck and had bottles of heroin that got stuck in their veins. I mean, this was just something totally new to me. And so because I couldn't fit in, and because I wasn't being accepted, because I was being bullied and targeted, you would think that I had another alternative or suggestion of something that I did to combat that, but I didn't. I joined them. So I made a decision to get jumped into a gang. Initiation is about 60 seconds. Usually the girls beat the girls up and the guys beat the guys up, but this particular day, 3 of my homeboys got around me and socked me for about 60 seconds until I fell on the ground. I got up, I fell down, I got up, I fell down, and after that, you're a full-fledged gang member. And anything that they tell you to do, you're required to do. Theft, assaults, robbery, vandalism, and even murder. And so I lived that life, and my parents were so, and I hate to say the word naive because it's so negative, but they were so, they didn't know, they didn't educate themselves, they didn't understand, they too lived in a bubble, they didn't know how to handle me, and so I went completely wild. At 14 years old, you know, my mom said, "You're not going out." And I said, "Watch me." And I'd walk out the door. And if she told me to come in at a certain time, I would come in at 4 or 5 in the morning. I started experiencing with drugs. I experienced with alcohol. I had run-ins with the police. There were even times where rival gang members would come into our neighborhood, and I would run up to the car. There was one specific time that a rival gang member put a gun right in my face. And I was looking down the barrel of the gun. Yeah, my knees were shaking, and I was thinking, how am I going to get out of this? And he pulled the trigger, click, and they drove off. There was another specific time where it was late at night, the phone rang, my dad answered, my parents' pastor said, "Jose, I left the keys inside the church, I'm across the street at the payphone, can you come and let me in the church?" My dad got out of bed. He asked my mom if she wanted to go. They asked me if I wanted to go. This whole thing does not make sense, but we all 3 got in a car and rode 7 miles to the church. My dad opened the church. He talked to the pastor a few minutes. He got back in the car. We drove home. We were gone a total of 45 minutes. When my mom was getting in bed, no one turned on a light. She said, "Jose, turn the light on, turn the light on." So I just thought maybe it was a mouse. I didn't know what it was. And as she was getting in the bed, she felt the sheets ripped. A rival gang came by my house while we were gone, the 45 minutes that we were gone, shot my house 6 times, and 4 bullets pierced my parents' bed. 2 in the pillow, 1 in the upper where they would have been if they were laying there, probably in the shoulder, and 1 up here. And probably would have killed both my parents. That night, my mom called the police. The police came over. I was so angry. And I knew my homeboys would take care of it. I didn't need to tell the police anything. I was going to tell my homeboys what happened, and they would go and they would kill those people who did that. And so the police officer comes in, and he looks at me right away and goes, "What gang are you from?" And I was like, "I'm not in a gang." He goes, "You're lying." And my mom said, "My daughter's not in a gang?" He goes, "Lady, you're crazy. Look at your daughter. Look at the way she stands. Look at her eyebrows. Look at what she's wearing. She's in a gang." So he takes me in my bedroom, and he pushes me against the wall, and he says, "You're going to tell me who did this." And I was like, "I'm not going to tell you anything because I don't know." And it was spitting in my face and, you know, pushed me against the wall. I didn't come out with any information, so they finally took the report and they left. Things like that happened several times. And, you know, in the back of my mind, way in the back of my mind, I felt like God was protecting me because that's not what I was supposed to do. I was making those choices, but as I began experiencing with drugs and alcohol, I experienced with sex as well. And at 16, found myself pregnant. Went home, told my parents. The father, my son, was a gang member. He decided that he was going to take a couple kilos of cocaine to New York, and he was going to get $15,000 and give me half the money. When he went to Los Angeles, the canines were out that day. They alerted on the bag, and he went to the federal pen for 5 years. So I had my son, and it was fun for the first 7 days, and then I got really bored. So I went back to school, and I went back to partying, and I went back to doing everything I wanted to do, and I lived in my parents' house, so they took care of my son. And I would come home at 4 or 5 in the morning high. My son was sleeping, and I'd go to bed, and when he woke up at 7, my mom would get up and keep him. And I was distant, I was rebellious, I was ugly, I was awful, I was an awful person. I would take care of my son if nobody else was home. And that was the only way I would do that. I still wanted to live my life until one night I came home. It was probably 3 or 4 in the morning, and just like every night when I go out, my mom's sitting on the couch with her Bible open praying for me, because she's always said, I felt like the police were going to come tell me that you were going to be dead in an alley. I was just waiting for that knock. So I came home, and she gave me a paper, and it was a letter, and said, open this. So I opened the letter, and it said, basically, I can't do this anymore. The umbilical cord is now cut. I said, Mom, what is this? She said, I can't do this anymore. Oh, so you're kicking me out of the house? And she said, you've got to leave. I was so mad. I went to bed, and I thought, well, I'll come home at midnight, a couple nights, and then she'll get over this. 2 weeks later, I walk in my house, and there's 2 big suitcases by the door. And I said, what is this? And she said, I told you you're leaving. I was like, you're going to kick me and my son out on the street? You know, just using that manipulation to try to get her to let me do what I want to do. And she said, no, you're going to Cleveland, Tennessee. And I said, what the heck is that? What is that? Nobody knows what Tennessee is in California. You know, I mean, I'm like, what is that? And she's like, it's a state on the other side of the United States. She said, that's where me and your dad went to college. That's where you're going. I've already made the arrangements. So I walked out the door, I walked to the liquor store, I picked up the payphone, and I called my boyfriend at the time, some guy I had been seeing, and I said, can me and my son live with you just till we get on our feet? And he said, I'll be there in 10 minutes. Well, it's perfect, because my bags were already packed, and I was just going to have to grab those and put them in the car and go. So I went back to my house, 10 minutes came and went, 15, 20, and here comes my dad walking out with my bags and puts them in our car. And we drive north to the LAX airport. It was before 9/11, so we get out of the car, we walk up to the gate, my parents are with me, time to board the plane. So I pick up my 2-year-old son, he's crying over my shoulder, and I don't even say goodbye to my parents. I just walk onto the plane. And I was so angry and thinking, they're gonna regret this. They're gonna regret they ever sent me away. I go to Cleveland, Tennessee. I'm a full-fledged gang member. I mean, I look like a gang member, I'm dressed like a gang member, I talk like one, I act like one, everything about me is gang life. And I thought, no one's gonna punk me around at this school. They're gonna be afraid of me, I'm gonna have friends, this is just the way it goes. And I remember walking on that campus that first day, and everyone goes, hi, welcome to Lee College. And I'm like, why are people so nice here? That's so weird. I didn't know anything about the South or Southern hospitality or anything like that. And so I walked on campus, these people came up to me, they were talking to me, they were trying to help me find my class. I mean, they were being so kind to me. And so the days progressed, and it was 2 weeks and 3 weeks and 4 weeks, and I was making friends, and things started to look different. And my mom, I guess, had a break with me living over there and trying to take care of my son and figuring out how to do that. And so one day at Lee College, you have to go to chapel. You have to go on Sunday nights and then Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so one Sunday night I was in chapel, and there was a pastor that was preaching, and I didn't want to listen to what he was saying, but there were some words that caught my attention. He said, aren't you tired of running from God? And I felt like he was talking to me. And it only took a few minutes till I handed my son to somebody, and I ran down to the altar in front of 2,000 students. And I lifted my hands and I said, God, I do not know why you would want me. I'm garbage. I've done so much to hurt so many people. But here I am. And if you can use me in whatever way you want to, then I want you to forgive me, and I want to be different. It seemed like it took just hours where he began to chip off the nastiness in my life. I began reading my Bible. I began wanting to be in a relationship with God. I knew about that from when I was little. And as things started to change, I mean, my hair came down a few inches, and I started incorporating pinks and reds in my wardrobe. Like I was always wearing black or brown or dark navy, whatever. And so I started changing a little bit. My mouth got cleaner. I started, not cussing as much, and I started being nice to people. Things just started really looking up for me. I was like, man, this is crazy how it's so nice to live in peace. I don't have to be looking over my back, wondering if somebody's gonna kill me. And then one Sunday morning, I woke up and I threw up. And I never throw up, except if I'm pregnant. And I thought, I cannot believe this. I can't believe this. I said, God, there is no way I'm pregnant. I sucked my stomach in. I felt on the left side of my stomach. I freaked out. So I immediately got a phone book and I looked under abortion. And I said, yes, there's one abortion clinic in Cleveland, Tennessee. It's called New Hope Pregnancy Crisis Center. So I'll walk in that place and I'll have this, whatever they do, I don't know what they do, but I'm gonna have this abortion, and then I'll walk out. Nobody will know. God will forgive me because that's what he does. And I'll just go on with life. So, yay. Call the center Monday morning. I said, hi, I need an appointment. And she said, okay, what time do you want to come in? 10 o'clock. I'll be there. So I went to the center. Mind you, I've been in Cleveland, Tennessee about 6 weeks. Nobody told me that this was the Bible Belt. So I walk in, and the lady says, here, fill this paperwork out. So I start filling all this paperwork. I had no idea, abortion. I knew abortion meant I'm pregnant and then I'm not pregnant, okay? That's all I knew. So I fill this paper out. At the very bottom, it says, what church do you attend? I'm like, I'm not gonna tell them I'm a Christian. I'm here to have an abortion. I don't want them to know that. And so I just put NA. So I gave the paper back to her, and I was standing up to go to the restroom to do a urine test. I saw a Bible on the chair. I went and did the urine test. They put me in a small room with a couch and a lamp and a table. She comes in and says, well, Evie, you're pregnant. And I said, okay. I said, is this a Christian place? And she said, yes. I said, why are you in the phone book under abortion? And she said, no, it's post-abortion recovery. Well, I'd only been in college 6 weeks. How was I supposed to know what post meant? I didn't know. And I was like, oh my gosh. I thought it meant like after you were finished, like they would tell you, hey, this is what you have to do. It's a recovery. I didn't know. So I was like, okay, can I have an abortion here, yes or no? And she said, no, we don't do that. I said, what do you do? She's like, well, we help women in crisis pregnancies. I said, how can you help me? Well, we love you. I'm like, okay, give me something better than that. What can you do for me? We're gonna help you, we can help you through it. We wanna tell you what your options are with this. And as she began to talk, I was becoming angry because I had no option. I could not have this baby. I'm a teenager still. I have a 2-year-old son, 2,000 miles away from home. I just moved there. I have no job, no money, no car, and I'm a elite college student. If they find out that I'm pregnant, they will kick me out of school. So there's no options. I cannot have this baby. And so I said, ma'am, I would thank you for your time. If I can't have an abortion here, I'm going somewhere else. So she starts wringing her hands. Well, can we talk? I was like, I don't want to talk to you. I am going to have an abortion. If I can't do it here, I'll go to another city. And she started running her hands, rubbing her hands, and she said, I'll be right back. She comes back in about 2 minutes later and says, before you go, will you watch this video? So I didn't want to be super rude. I mean, I was a little rude, but not super rude. So I said, put it on, I don't care, whatever, just put it on. I was like, 22 minutes, I'm out of here. She brings a box of Kleenexes and she leaves the room. So this video comes on, it says, it all begins with a swirl of blood. And I'm watching this sonogram picture You see this baby, you see a needle that comes through, some solution, and then this baby begins to choke. It's like gasping for air. You see its lungs coming up and coming down, moving. I mean, it's shaking, like convulsing. And I'm watching this, and it's shaking, and I'm sure the process was sped up a little bit, and it stops moving. And I saw a partial birth abortion. The head comes out. There's sharp object inserted in the back of the skull. And a vacuum sucks out the brains, and a lifeless body is delivered. And another procedure where they begin to suck parts of the fingers and toes and limbs off into a bag. And I was so disturbed by this picture. I said, I can't do that. I can't have this baby, but I cannot do that. So I left that center more hopeless and helpless than I walked in. And it was a few days later that I came home. It was a Friday night. I walked in. I didn't tell anyone that I was pregnant. I walked in my house. I looked in my cabinets. I had a bag of popcorn, and I had about that much milk. I popped the popcorn. I gave my son the milk. I put him in bed, and I cried for like 3 hours in my living room. And I'm saying, how can I be pregnant? How can I have another baby when I can't even feed myself? So I went to bed hungry. I was tired. I was upset. I laid in bed. I rubbed my son's back. I went to sleep, and I thought, tomorrow's going to come early. And it did. And at 7 a.m., my little 2-year-old pops up, and I had to get thinking quick. And I thought, Josh, we're going to go to the park, and we're going to have so much fun. And I thought, please don't ask me for food. If I just stall him and just take him to the park, that will give me a few hours to think of what I'm supposed to do. And so I stood him on the toilet. I washed his face. I brushed his hair. And inside, I'm pregnant, and I'm hungry. I haven't eaten. And so I'm thinking, what am I going to do when the park's over? How am I going to feed my son? I take his little hands, we walk across the living room floor, and I open up the door, and there are 6 full bags of groceries on my doorstep. And I looked at that, and I felt like God was saying to me, if you trust me, I will provide everything you need. And I looked at that, and Josh is like, my son was like, Mom, park. And I go, no, eggs. Let's eat. We've got to eat. Then we go to the park. And he's like, oh, man. So that has been a staple for 20 years in my life of the faithfulness of God. So taking a long story and condensing it, I went for spring break. This is March now. Still have not told anybody that I was pregnant. Haven't gone to the doctor. I don't know where to go. I have no money. I'm going to school every day. And I go on spring break to Maryland with the choir that I was singing in from Lee. And I was 135 pounds and wearing a choir robe. And I come down and I get on my knees at the altar, and I'm like, Lord, what am I going to do? I don't know. I don't even know what to do. I can't tell my parents this. This will break their heart. I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. I felt a hand on my back, and I heard a woman praying for me. And I got up, and I just looked at her, and I said, thank you for praying for me. And she said, the Lord spoke to me. And I said, okay. And she said, I know that you're in pain, and he told me that you're pregnant. And I was like, are you kidding me that you would tell this woman? Like, God speaks to me. I mean, I know, why would you tell our secret? I'm thinking, why would you tell our secret? And then I'm wondering, because Jesus and my mom are like this. I'm like, have you told my mom? You know, I'm wondering if he's told my mom. And so I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this. I was like, ma'am, will you please, you cannot tell a soul. She's like, honey, I'm telling you what the Lord impressed on my heart, and I want to help you through this. That woman was heaven sent. She called me that and along with the pregnancy center that they kept in contact with me saying, where are you at? What are you doing? Have you gone to see a doctor yet? This woman calls me and says, Evie, go to Starview Drive, you get TennCare, you don't have to pay anything for your insurance, they give you this play money, it looks like Monopoly money, you have food stamps. I was like, what? I was like, she's like, you go to a store, you just get whatever you want, and you just give them that money. I was like, who knew? I mean, I didn't even know what food stamps were. So she's telling me all this information, and so I go to the doctor, and I go this is April now, my parents come to visit, they had no idea I was pregnant. I finally, after they left, I went to the doctor. This was the end of April, and they said, you're due in July, the end of July. I wasn't growing. I asked the doctor, why is my stomach not growing? She said, it's just the position of the baby. I don't know, you're very small. And so I said, works for me. So May comes, all my friends leave. It's like a ghost town in Cleveland because Lee University is the school. And so all my friends leave, my stomach pops out. And this lady continues to call me. The pregnancy center gives me maternity clothes. They're staying in contact with me, saying, Evie, we're not going to tell you what to do, but we're here to support you. We're here to love you. And so one day she says, have you considered adoption? I was like, there's no way. I can't like have this baby and then give the baby to somebody else. Like I can't do that. And she said, Evie, you were considering abortion. She's right. So, through divine intervention, I met a couple from Ohio that was looking to adopt a baby. They came from Ohio to Tennessee. They spent several weekends with me, and I loved them. I said, this is the couple. So, it was probably mid-June that I made the decision to place my son for adoption and for them to raise him. It didn't seem like a very difficult decision to make because I knew I still had 3 more years of school left, and I was making it, but barely. I was trying to progress. I was trying to get an education. I was trying to provide for Joshua, and it just seemed like that was the right thing to do. 3 weeks before I had my son, I wrote my parents a letter, and I said, I'm so sorry to tell you this, but I'm pregnant, but don't worry, because I've got everything under control. Here is, this is a 19-year-old speaking. I said, I'm going to place my son for adoption. And so, Mom, don't worry about me. You know, during that time, she was moving my grandmother from California to Virginia, so she sent my sister. My sister comes for a week. She's here 2 days or 3 days and says, dude, you better have this baby. I got to go back. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? She said, drink this castor oil and orange juice. I was like, okay. So I drink it. 22 hours later, I go into labor. I deliver a 7-pound, beautiful, healthy, black-headed, dark-skinned baby boy. He was beautiful. And they put him on my chest, and I loved him, and I kissed him, and the nurses took him, and they gave him to his parents, and it was beautiful. That night, the nurse comes into my room, and she says, oh, honey, I know you're so tired. Let me take him so you can get some rest. And I said, I don't know if I'll ever see him again. So I'm going to keep him. And I was tired. My body was worn. My heart was breaking. But I knew I was going to only have like 8 hours with him. So over the next 8 hours, I kissed my son. I prayed over him. I talked to him and I said, I hope that you won't be angry at me for this, but I'm doing this because I love you, because my heart doesn't want to, but my mind knows that this is the best thing for you. And even though I was tired, I put him on my chest. I loved him. I sang to him, and they were supposed to come the next day at 5:30 to pick him up. When that clock hit 5 p.m., I went into trauma mode. And I share my story so many times. It was 21 years ago, but I can see myself still in that hospital room. And if you think of the most important person in your life, whether it be your spouse, your parents, your whoever, and someone says you have 30 minutes with them and you may never see them again, that's kind of what it felt like. I had no idea if I was ever going to see my son again. So I began to hurt. I didn't realize that I was going through trauma at the time, but I mean, I hurt. I mean, all the way down to my fingertips. I was hurt. My body was shaking. I couldn't breathe, and I was trying to calm down as best I could. And I prayed. I said, Lord, this is not possible to do this. This is not possible. And mothers, and even fathers too, but mothers specifically because you birth the children, I mean, it's normal to do this, not this, you know? And so I said, Lord, if you will please just give me peace. I have to make it through this. And it was within minutes that I began to feel warm water. It felt like warm water pouring from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet, and a peace that came over me. At 5:30, they wheeled me out in a wheelchair. I put my son in a car seat and watched as they drove off. And I went back to school 2 weeks later. And I was heartbroken. I didn't know how to feel. I didn't know if I was supposed to be depressed or sad or happy. I didn't know how I was supposed to feel. And my friends came bebopping back. They're like, hey, how was your summer? And I was like, how was yours? Like, they had no idea I had a baby. They were only gone 2 months. How could that possibly happen? But I dove headfirst into my studies. And I thought, I don't have time to be sad. I've got to finish because I have a little boy that's looking up to me. 2 years later, I graduated with a 4-year degree from the university in intercultural studies. And this is the wild part. I'm a police officer. How does that happen? I don't even know. God has such a great sense of humor. And they came to me and asked me to be one. It was weird. The guy's like, hey, would you like a job? I was like, sure, I'd love to be a secretary. And he's like, no, as a police officer. I was like, I can't be a police officer. He's like, why? I was like, well, I've committed crimes, and I've messed with drugs and alcohol and done all kinds of bad stuff. And he's like, put it all down on your background. And then we're gonna polygraph you. And I was like, okay. So I did that. The chief of police brought me in his office and said, last year, if you make one mistake, you're out of here. I was like, okay. And that was 17 years ago. In 2016, I was promoted to sergeant over our community relations unit. So my job is to go out and speak to people about crime prevention. And I usually talk about Jesus too. But I talk about crime prevention. I have the canines. We do a lot of drug prevention in our area. And I'm the public information officer. So whenever we have a huge incident that happens in our city, I contact the media, I speak on the news. EVIE West, you need to come speak, you need to do this. And has put me in a place where I'm able to share my story with so many people. So here's what I'm talking about, timely God, a timely God. The same God that puts the food on your doorstep when you don't have it. I was driving down the street the other day, and they called on the radio for 2 officers to go to the hospital because a young girl was in the hospital. Department of Children's Services was there to remove the child because she had failed her drug test for methamphetamine. So the 2 officers were brand new, and in my mind I'm thinking, this is me. Like, no, it wasn't the same situation. My child wasn't removed that way. I mean, it was voluntarily. But I know how this girl feels. It doesn't matter if she's on methamphetamine, but she is not wanting to give her child away. And so I walked in the hospital, and the DCS workers were there, the officers were there, knowing she was not giving the child up. And so I said, can I talk to her? And I shut the hospital door. I shared my testimony in like 10 minutes, and she kissed that baby and placed that baby in my arms, and I walked out of the hospital with that baby in a safe manner. And I went back in there, and the Lord used me to minister to her heart, her spirit. So God puts me in places to share my testimony, to tell people that God is real, that He is trustworthy, that He is a Father, that He cares about us. Because I would have chosen abortion if it not had been for New Hope Pregnancy Care Center. They were at the right place at the right time. And it doesn't matter if how does a girl from Los Angeles, California end up in Cleveland, Tennessee, end up in Alpena, Michigan, speaking at a pregnancy center banquet? How does that happen? Well, do you think that there could possibly be women that come from other places or even local that find themselves in a crisis pregnancy that need help? Maybe they do think that Alpena, that Options Pregnancy Center is an abortion clinic. And they walk in there looking, and they are greeted by Emily or Jamie with the smile and saying, let me tell you, there are options. Let me educate you. Let me encourage you. Let me love you without judging you. And you, obviously, from being here, support this mission. We need to stand for life because there are so many people out there saying, it's not a big deal. Abortion's not a big deal. It's just not the right time for you to have this baby. And a lot of times, unfortunately, I'm the one that deals with those people, because when I go out on the street and I find a prostitute or a drug user and I say, how did you get here? Oh, I just started using. No, you don't just start using methamphetamine, heroin. How did you get here? Tell me about your home life. I had an abortion when I was 15. I can't get over it. I can't forgive myself. So you use heroin. You have sex with random strangers for money so that you can get the next fix. Why? Because there's a need that needs to be met. And it doesn't just happen in Cleveland, Tennessee or Los Angeles, California. It happens in Alpena, Michigan. An Options Pregnancy Center here serves 4 counties. 4 counties. I did the math tonight because I always ask the pregnancy. I go and speak at different pregnancy centers to help them raise money. This is important because I am a testimony of who they are. I represent the abortion-minded client. The client that comes in and says, there's nothing you can do for me. As soon as I walk out of this place, I'm going to kill my baby. I'm going to have an abortion. You don't understand what I'm going through. And then you've got these pregnancy center workers thinking, how do I convince this woman to choose life? How do I convince this woman? How do I tell her that there's so many more consequences when you choose abortion? Can you be forgiven? 100% yes. And I have every single pregnancy center banquet that I go and speak at. Every one. There's a line of people that want to talk to me. And I just went to Albany, New York in May, and a woman came up to me and said, I've had 2 abortions. I've never told anybody, and I cannot forgive myself. And I said, God has forgiven. Have you asked for forgiveness? Yes, God's forgiven you. Throw it as far east as from the west. How do you know that? How do you walk in truth if you can't tell anybody because you're so ashamed of what you've done? But you walk into a pregnancy center like Options and someone says, I've had 2 abortions and I can't forgive myself. And Emily says, let me tell you about the classes that we have, the recovery that we have. Let me tell you what we can do for you. So I looked around here and I counted 8 people at each table, and roughly there's like 190 if every single seat was filled. But I'm going to stop at 150. Let's just say there's 150 people in this room. $25. If every person, and I realize there's couples here, okay? But if every person in this place gave $25, if every person gave $25 a month, that's $3,750 a month for Options Pregnancy Center. $25. That's $45,000 a year for a place that you believe saves lives, that God uses to save lives in 4 counties. Double it. If every person here gave $50, that's $90,000 a year. What is $50? What is how many of us spend $25 in an hour? Eating lunch, eating dinner, shopping. $25. So tonight I share my story with you because I want you to see how important it is to not just come here supporting and encouraging Options by being here tonight. And I thank you so much for doing that. But I want you to believe so hard in this mission that Options is changing lives, seeing 24 clients last year. And guess what? The numbers that Emily sent me, seeing 24 clients. 15 to 19, ages 15 to 19, there was 4. From 30 years and older, there was 5. Those are the clients that come in. 15 and 19, there was 4. 30 and over, there was 5. That's a huge age gap. I mean, I see the need here. I understand the need. The nearest pregnancy center is 3 hours away. 3 hours away. $25 a month if every person gave tonight. So tonight I'm asking you, I'm pleading with you to I'm calling you to action. I'm asking you to consider what you can give, what you can commit to. And you know, there's several needs. If you look at your card that's sitting on your table, if you just pull it up and look at it, if you turn it over and it says, I will support options by supplying. Look at this, post-abortion healing. I just talked about that. $130, that's what they need for that. Computers, $300 each. Toner, ink, paper, $500 a year. The rent is $300 a month. Internet or utilities and gas, $120 a month. And if we go back and we do the math, that's 5 people. 5 people giving $25 a month. But the importance is, yes, one-time gift. If you can make a one-time gift of $1,000 tonight, I challenge you to do that. I remember being in a pregnancy center banquet in North Carolina, and I asked the pregnancy center director, I said, hey, do people have money here? And she goes, oh, there's a lot of rich people here. So I stepped out. I was like, who can give $10,000 tonight? Someone's like, it's like, woo, all right. Yay, I'm gonna do that again. Who can give $5,000? It was like an auction. But you know what was awesome? Is that all that money went to the pregnancy center to say, we believe in what you're doing, we believe in you saving lives, and we're going to be a part of that. $25 a month. I know there's people in here that can do that. I know there's people in here that can do 50. So what I'm going to ask you to do is I would like to pray over you tonight. And I would like you to take time to discuss it, if you're a couple or if you're single or whoever you're with, to prayerfully consider this in your heart. What can I give? I would love for you to give a one-time donation, but I would also love for you to be a monthly donor, because with these pregnancy centers, it is so important to get that committed. I mean, if you need to say, look, I can commit $25 a month for 1 year, write that on the card. 1 year I'll give it, and then I will reevaluate. And if you can up it $5, up it. If you can up it $50, do that. But we need to stand behind Options Pregnancy Center and say, I support the mission that you have of saving lives in our community. So if you turn over to the front, you see here of what you're able to do. I would like to volunteer there, or I pledge this much each month. You can put out to the side for 1 year, for 6 months, whatever you feel comfortable doing. One-time donation, or partner by meeting a need and then seeing the back of card. You can use PayPal, which is a great way to pay, or you can use check, or you can ask to be mailed a receipt so that you can pay that monthly. So will you bow your heads with me tonight? Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the opportunity to share my mess that has become your message of hope, restoration, love, forgiveness. You are such a good God that you clean up our messes, you forgive us, and you use us tremendously. And I ask you, God, to bless Options Pregnancy Center abundantly, above and beyond, Lord. This is a small town. This is a small pregnancy center. The need is great to be here. Of course, 24 people were affected by the love of Options. And it didn't just end there. There was 48 client visits that came in, people needing different services from them. They are much needed. So tonight, I ask you, Lord, to impress upon the hearts of every Options Pregnancy Center supporter here tonight. Will you put an amount? Will you speak to them? Will you provide? Even if we step out on faith and say, I can't really do this, but I'm going to trust that God is going to bless me by giving. So this is what I'm going to pledge. Will you speak to the hearts of your people? Will you help us to be generous with the funds and the monies that you give us, that you entrust with us. In Jesus' name, amen. Will you take a minute, 2 minutes, and look at your card? Will you get out pens, and will you make a commitment tonight to support them by a one-time gift or monthly commitment? Both would be preferable. And I'll give you just a few minutes to do that. In 2017, he walked into my home, and I was able to see him for the first time, and it was a meeting like I can't even explain. God has answered the prayer that I had for 20 years praying to meet my son. He graduated from high school, got a 35 on his ACT, and got a full ride to Miami University in Ohio. And so he is in his junior year there, and studying computer science. So he, the other day, he just texted me a picture of, well, this is the funny thing. He said, "Why is my hair black and why am I dark?" I was like, "You're Mexican." He's like, "Really? That explains it. I love Mexican food." I'm like, "How would you not know if you're Mexican?" Like, I looked at his mom, I was like, you didn't tell him he was Mexican?" She goes, "I didn't know what he was. I thought you were Puerto Rican." I was like, oh my gosh. So he's texting me pictures of Mexican food that he's learning to make, and it is so awesome. And so I hope to see him again sometime this year, but this has been my year. And so I hope, I pray that God allows the hearts of birth mothers to be able to meet their children and be able to reconnect, because God is a God of restoration. So that is the good news that I have in meeting my son. God is blessing us. I'm married, and God is expanding our family. He's good. He's great. And so I am so happy to be here with you tonight. I am so thankful that you allowed me to take your time tonight, and I'm thankful for you being generous in your donations and your giving. So God bless you. Please continue to support Options. They're very important and need your support. God bless you.